Welcome to this preview for Windows on the World Live, which is every Sunday, 9:30 p.m. UK time. Our last 6 or even 7 shows have all been about the bigger picture, and they are called and referred to as the Protocols of Power. They all have different titles, and they're available in an article on the homepage at windowsontheworld.net. Look for the Protocols of Power, or just go back into the Sunday archive and you'll find them all there. That's on the live shows page at windowsontheworld.net. You can listen to our whole archive of Sunday shows, and on the homepage, you can get access to everything going back to 2014. And if you really want to go and have a look at the archive of what we were doing years and years ago, go back into the Wayback Machine and look up Land of the Free, all lowercase, landofthefree.co.uk. Well, these shows are about the evolution of the mind. Our last show was with Stephen Strong of ForgottenOrigin.com and his Out of Australia theory. Now, this may be new to some people. If it's new to you, take a look at ForgottenOrigin.com. What we are concerned about in this show, which is the latest show at windowsontheworld.net, which will go out live at 9 p.m. this and every Sunday, is the evolution of the mind. So it does appear that Homo sapiens sapiens are devolving by consent. And we talked about this in the interview. If you want to see the interview, it is on our Odyssey channel. And I've also put it into the archive at windowsontheworld.net on the live shows page, which goes out on Spreaker. So actually, as a side issue, what I'm going to do is upload a secondary show to the Sunday show sort of midweek. And that's what I did with this show with Stephen Strong. So it's available on our Odyssey channel and also on our Spreaker channel on the live shows page at windowsontheworld.net. I think I've made that sound a little bit complicated, actually, but it isn't. Just go to the homepage of Windows on the World and it's all there. We do not use YouTube anymore because we've had so-called community strikes. And we've also had a lot of content removed by them. So one of the things I will never do is dumb down the content of our shows to get a bigger audience, which is why a lot of the conspiratard community have never heard of this show, because it's totally marginalized by all of the so-called alternative media, because it goes into places they don't, and it covers things in a lot of depth. I'm only interested in knowledge and the advancement of thinking. That is what these shows are about. In actual fact, the tagline was to cause an outbreak of thinking. That was the tagline I used for Protocols of Power. Protocols of Power really is a good background to what we're going to be talking about tonight. We're going to be talking about Darwinism and social Darwinism, which is actually more important in a way, because the ideals of Darwin, the theories, which were just theories, which have been disproved, are now being used and have been used for the past 100 years at least to socially control human beings. And of course, those people who think that they are part of some elite are as controlled as those which are considered not to be part of that elite. So I've got a few notes here about things we're going to be covering tonight. And we're going to go into basically the debate on creationism versus evolution and even intelligent design. And intelligent design denies creationism, which is actually another distraction and limits argument. So what I do find is that people are very limited in their ability to argue on creationism versus so-called evolution, because when I look at the comments, such as underneath the last interview I did with Stephen Strong, which is called Ancient Australia, which you can find on our Odyssey channel and in the Sunday show archive. I think I've said that already. But if you look at some of the conversations that go on, especially on the YouTube channel, somebody actually put, well, okay, so we did evolve because apes can't construct places to live in. And the argument was that they were adapted to the planet and we weren't. And there's several reasons why we're not adapted to the planet, which we went into in that interview. And also, we're going to be going into those things tonight and some of the arguments which were formed really by this so-called elite group of thinkers. Just having a look at the, yes, there's a few people in there. That's good. I'm actually using a slightly different setup tonight. I've had a few problems with this camera side issue there. But in the 1800s, this is what we're going to be discussing in this latest show, which you will find in the archive at wondersontheworld.net on the live shows page. And it will have evolution in the title. I haven't made the actual final decision on what it's going to be called yet, so it's all fresh. In the 1800s, there was a movement which debated that if the Bible told the truth, then there was no way of peaceably challenging the monarch in Britain, as sovereignty was assumed to descend from God to king. So you can see this is getting into some really fascinating areas of bloodlines. Now, this was the reasoning of a group of Whig lawyers and MPs, one of whom, Charles Lyell, published a volume called Principles of Geology in 1830. And Darwin acknowledged Charles Lyell for supplying a timeline for natural selection. So if the Bible was shown to be inaccurate, particularly in respect of the deluge, then the philosophical foundation of the monarch would be shattered. So this is the thinking of the times. And we're going to be going into that in some detail in this show tonight. Alfred Russel Wallace, another person who you could say was really part of this social engineering of the time, said that we have defined natural selection, which of course they never did. Nature never endows a species beyond the demands of everyday existence. Well, I'm afraid you shot yourself in the foot with that one, Alfred. The brain had, though, far advanced our needs, and this was, of course, and obviously known at the time. Natural selection does not explain artistic, mathematic, or mental abilities in the quoted struggle for existence. However, on the contrary, this argument is also used to quantify evolution as well as deny it. So we're getting into very flawed areas of argument where people throw in things which are actually logical fallacies or false arguments. So we're going to be addressing that tonight as well, which is quite interesting. So basically, what we're going to be discussing tonight is Darwinism, social Darwinism, and evolution, and the now utterly debunked out of Africa theory, because that's a big part of where this, in reality, fairy story takes us, because it's still taught in schools, as is, of course, anthropogenic global warming, which will be found in times to come if the human race as it is survives that long. And I'm not talking about we're going to be wiped out through climate change, possibly a catastrophe, because that's happened before, a comet hitting the planet, something like that. We're going to be discussing how all of these things are put into the education system for one purpose and one purpose only: control and management of human resources. That's all it is. Because if you're allowed to think outside of the box, in actual fact, the people who are imposing this are quite capable of thinking outside the box, and they accept what the education establishments would call conspiracy theories as reality. That is actually true. People who have an extraordinary amount of knowledge know the things that are denounced and fed to the public as conspiracy theories are true. That is just an absolute known fact, which is something I've learned through experience over the years. But that's a side issue as well. But we're going to be discussing these issues in tonight's show. So I'm just going to read some of these comments. Yeah. Enjoy listening to your shows and share them. Thank you very much, Frida. Been here 2 billion years as a possibility before the Earth was at this tilt. Well, maybe. We're going to be discussing a lot of that stuff, Common Man. And that is why these shows are exploratory and informative, because I will never put anything out that is just talk, which is why these shows have a smaller audience than the so-called alternative media, of which now I have nothing to do with, as you may have noticed. These shows are self-contained. They are basically my lifelong learning curve, which I share with like-minded people. I don't want a dumbed-down audience, as I said earlier. I'm only interested in the meeting of minds. The feedback I get from the people who do listen has been absolutely extraordinary. And another thing I would say is that I've been able to visit many different places because of the people who actually listen to the show, which I'm enormously grateful for. So in a way, Windows on the World has been a show which has actually been of help to a great many people, because we have accurately defined the system under which we are being controlled and how to get out of that control. That's the main important point. I mean, we can talk all day long about the problems, but really at this stage, solutions and ways of looking at things, and basically evolution of the mind. That's what these shows are about. So if you like that idea, do join us every Sunday, 9:30 p.m. UK time at windowsontheworld.net on the live shows page. Please subscribe to our Odyssey channel. All the links are on the homepage at Windows on the World. We also have a Discord server, which is a place where people can exchange information and is quite useful, because a lot of the information which is current is in there. But apart from that, there are branches of conversation which arise from time to time. And sometimes those branches of conversation are merely for just humor, which is fine. So there's quite a lot going on in there. So we're going to be talking about a lot of this stuff tonight. And let's just finish with this. The original title of the social engineering document, The Origin of Species, published by Charles Darwin, was On the Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection, or the Preservation of Favored Races in the Struggle for Life. And we can see now that the whole thing was about social Darwinism. We're going to be discussing microevolution, which could be merely adaptation, and how it became macroevolution in the heated minds of the science so-called community. So Darwinism and social Darwinism fit perfectly into the eugenics movement and the belief in an elite who would like to think that they are where they are because of natural selection, rather than ruthless, calculating, long-term cunning and manipulation. So we're going to be talking about these concepts tonight, really how this whole theory of evolution and the out of Africa theory and all of these things that are told to us are actually part of social engineering, and anybody who keeps an eye on what's going on at the moment will be able to see that. So join us, windowsontheworld.net, live every Sunday, 9:30 p.m. UK time, massive archive. Do take a look at Protocols of Power, which is a series of 6 shows. And I would include this in the series because this is all about control and management of human resources. And that is exactly, of course, what Agenda 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals are all about. So all of this was going in one straight line from the 1800s. And we're going to be looking at the theories of these people, where they're only theories, of course, and how those theories were disproved, and mainly how this system was put into social engineering to control the minds and actions of the population. So join us 9:30 p.m. and do take a look at the archive. Okay, thanks.